Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, we're going to talk about Maggotkin of Nurgle, and in particular, changes we are likely to see in our brand new battle tome. Now, this video is going to be a little bit interesting because, of course, we're going to talk about things I reckon we should see rules-wise and updates to units and stuff like that. But I've got to remember that this is going to be a 3.0 battle tome, and we're going to use what I've seen from Stormcast and Kruleboyz as sort of, I guess, the baseline of how I think about this battle tome going forward. So that means I do think maybe we're going to see stuff a little bit stripped back, but I do think this is going to sort of affect how we see the army as a whole work. We're going to see these abilities that maybe are on War Scrolls become just generic abilities, things that get spread across the army and stuff like that, and that's what I want to talk about today. So, without further ado, let's get cracking into it. I've got 5 main topics I want to talk about, and I'd be interested to hear anything you think is going to change for the army. Number 1, more subfactions with less rules. So, looking at the Stormcast and the Orruk Warclans battle tomes, this is definitely what we're going to see, I think. Now, we've obviously got the Drowned Men and the Blessed Sons. I believe that's the 2 subfactions, and there are a couple of others, aren't there, as well. The Droning Guard and another one. I can't quite remember the name, but the 4 different Nurgle subfactions. We got 2 for demons, 2 for mortals from the Wrath of the Ever-Chosen book. Now, I think we're going to see maybe a couple more added to this. Nurgle were one of the armies that didn't have any subfactions, so they actually are a 1.0 battle tome rather than a 2.0 where subfactions started to become a thing. So I think maybe we're going to see maybe 6, maybe even 8 different subfactions, at least 6 I think though, and see the rules in these subfactions sufficiently toned down. I do think we'll see that even spread between the 2 different parts of the army, which is really interesting. And so we'll see some equal part demon and some equal part mortal. But maybe we'll also see some subfactions that actually work when using a combined arms force of both demons and mortals, which would be really cool. It'd be interesting to sort of see what these subfactions are going to do, but I do feel they're going to do a lot less. They're just going to be that free sort of rule that we've seen in the current Battle Tome edition, in this edition. So, yeah, we're going to see more subfactions, I think, but we're going to see less rules from them. If you were to pick a rule for the current sort of 4 subfactions, what would you have? So let's talk about those 4 subfactions. And so, if we are going to see Munificent Wanderers, I think maybe we ignore a point of Rend on our opponent's models. Attacking us is probably how we'll go for that particular subfaction. We've got the Droning Guard, where we worsen the Rend as well. Maybe these are the 2 different parts, and maybe we might get something different for Droning Guard. Maybe we'll get something like a reroll of 1 to Disgusting Resilient in combat. Instead, I don't think we're going to see something. I think, don't think we'll see, maybe demons get the ability to ignore Rend 1, and then Munificent Wanderers ignore Rend 1 on Nurgle units. Yeah, I don't know if that's what we're going to see. Be interesting to see how they sort of split those 2 as a sort of main rule. We got the Blessed Sun, where we've got the ability to do mortal wounds when we die. That doesn't seem too unlikely. Maybe it'll be something as straight up as fight when we die, very similar to like Hallowed Knights. And the Drowned Men as well, very similar once again. Roll a dice each time a friendly Drowned Man model is slain and do mortal wounds back. So maybe we start looking at maybe reroll charges thanks to the Bloated Raider command trait, turning that into sort of an ability for the faction. Maybe reroll charges could be something cool for the Drowned Men. So, number 2, the disease rules we were sort of talked a little bit about, and we were told a little bit about in the reveal on how they sort of, if you're damaged by Nurgle units in combat, if you sort of get near them, you have these rules where they start, I guess, affecting you. Now, we've got this on multiple different models in the Nurgle range. Of course, if you get too close to the trees, they start doing mortal wounds. We've got things like the Verminal Corruptor and the Plague Sentinel Bearers do this from the Skaven part. and a bunch of other models sort of do mortal wounds if you're in the vicinity of them. I think rather than having these on War Scrolls, we may see these become abilities across the army. I do think in this battle tome we're actually going to see the Skaven parts of the Nurgle army potentially updated. It would be really cool to actually have Plague Monk and Vermilord Deceiver War Scrolls put into this battle tome. Would be something I'd really like to see. But yeah, I think we're going to see like a universal like main ability for the Maggotkin of Nurgle, sort of working these disease rolls off all models, and maybe, you know, you do a mortal wound if a unit's in combat, and if it's got 10 or more models, it does another, or maybe it turns into D3, and maybe characters always do D3 turning into D6, or something like that. It could be really interesting on how you sort of work these mortal wounds, and the fact that like just being in combat with Nurgle units is going to make this disease affect you. Really like the idea, because there's supposed to be an army that's going to potentially be grinding out wins with sort of toughness and all of that, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But I like the idea that they're going to do mortal wounds at the end of combats, and they're not likely to die in singular combats. Next, Rend and Damage. Now, we obviously know in one of the battalions, the Black Kings lost their ability to gain access to Rend. I do think we're going to see Rend added to their War Scroll. Them and the Pascal Black Lords are both going to see Rend 1 or 2 added to their War Scrolls. And I do think we're going to see some actual true hammers added to the Nurgle list. The big thing that we've had from the Maggotkin of Nurgle as a whole is the army can sort of take a lot, but it doesn't necessarily do a lot of damage back to our opponent. So I think we're going to see that increase, or maybe the Nurgle demons will be staying a lot harder, but we'll maybe have some of the mortal units, things like the Black Kings, Blight Lords, and even things like maybe the Beasts of Nurgle as well, potentially doing a lot more damage, giving us some true hammers in the army, which would be really welcome and really nice for them. This ability to sort of have these units that can actually deal the damage and compare them alongside units that are going to have a lot more staying power with some other abilities is going to be really useful for the army. And number 4, I talked about the staying power of Nurgle being a thing, and I do think we're going to see ward save sort of added to the army as a whole. Now, there's 2 ways this could be, where every model just has a ward save across the army of its own sort of device, whether this is going to be, you know, like the 5-up ward, like Disgustingly Resilient is currently, and you just see sort of 5s and 4s for your characters, or are we going to see a rule across the army wide? So say every model in the army has a 6-up ward, maybe something lower, or a 5-up ward, and then we have the ability for maybe Nurgle demon units get it on a 5-up, and maybe demon heroes get it on a 4-up, or something like that. I really do think we're going to see ward save sort of added. This keeps out a lot of the need for all these multiple different War Scroll abilities. I think we're going to see that stripped. I think we're going to see a lot of command abilities stripped off the War Scrolls as well. So there is the Black King character who gives out the ability of having Disgustingly Resilient effectively to a single Maggotkin Nurgle unit around him. So I think we're going to see that ability go, and just a ward save standard added to things like Black Kings and Blight Lords. And so I think that's maybe how it'll work. You have a 6-up ward. If you are a Nurgle unit, you'll have a +1 to that ward roll if you are a Nurgle demon, and then you have +1 again if you're a Nurgle hero, because of course you can add pluses to that because it's not a save, it's a damage denial roll, so ward save, which is not, you know, the save stacking ability. So you can easily add pluses, or simply just write 5-up for demons and 4-up for demon heroes, or whatever you want to do with that. I think that's going to be an interesting way to sort of add a little bit of that staying power and remove, while we see the command abilities and stuff removed from the army wholesale. And lastly, I do think we're going to see an increase in the amount of spells for Nurgle. We did see a full spell lore for the Stormcast, as well as a full prayer lore. And then we've also seen the Iron Jaws and all of the different Cruel Boys, etc. get some cool spell lores of their own. So maybe we are going to see maybe 5 spells each, maybe something like 10 spells across the army for demons and for mortals. Or maybe we will just see a singular spell lore with maybe 6 or 7 different spells available to us in it. I do think, though, we're going to see the artifacts and all that thinned down. I maybe think that we're not going to see, you know, these unique sort of tables, one for demons, one for mortals, etc. I think we'll just see, much like Stormcast, how we sort of saw there's a bunch of artifacts, there's a bunch of weapons, and then certain weapons and certain artifacts work on particular models, certain command traits, etc. work on particular models, mount traits meant for specific mounts, even though it's like, you know, oh, you can pick one of these mounts, and then they just go, this one's only for these mounts. I think that's how we'll sort of see all the artifacts and all that working for the army. But that is generally what I think we're going to see for Nurgle. It's interesting with the new edition. It's going to be like the third proper book. Obviously, excluding all those White Dwarf updates, this is going to be the third book where we're seeing how the artifacts, how the command abilities, and all that are going to work. So I think it's really interesting. I'd love to know what you think we're going to see, what you would like to see, and what you want to see as well. Let us know in the comments below. And so that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And while you're at it, leave us a comment and let us know what you liked about the video. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fine community we've got going at Cinderfall Gaming, you can do so by following the link in the description of the video to our Discord server. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel in another way, you can do so either by joining our Patreon or YouTube members. Our Patreon and YouTube members help decide what content we do on the channel. If you'd like to help support, that would be greatly appreciated, and we'd love to give a shout out to everyone who has helped support the channel via Patreon, and that is our patrons: Christian Weir, James, Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lyle, Outer and Shop First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Q Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Dynet226, Anton Nilsson, and JJ Austrian. And a special thank you to our YouTube members who, by the way, don't forget, when we've got live streams and in the comments, you can use our special emojis on YouTube. You amazing people. Thank you to our YouTube members: Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Steve T, The Real Zeop, Chris Wallace, Turo12, Vinny, Lock Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, and a special thank you to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel, and to Xmorphic, who does an amazing job at all the background work in our Discord server. Thank you to both of you. You do an amazing job and do so much for the channel. That's it for today, folks, though. Stay safe and stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now.